Hello everyone, it's Michelle Lupton here, and today I'm going to share with you a card that I made for this week's Craft Roulette challenge. I absolutely adore playing along with Craft Roulette, it's just so much fun. This Craft Roulette episode, the guest was my lovely friend Libby Hickson, and of course it was hosted by the inimitable Mary Gun FUNN. And the parameters for this week's challenge, there are 4 parameters for Craft Roulette. The first one, the project, was a thinking of you card. So I didn't actually use the phrase thinking of you, but I made this into a get well soon card. The colours were fairy tale card. And if you know anything about me, you can probably predict what direction I'm going. We don't even need to predict because you've seen the thumbnail. I went rainbow. The element was either here or his or ears or ear. So I actually went with an ear of wheat. And yes, it is described as an ear of wheat, just like it's an ear of corn. Basically any cereal plant that has like grains at the tip of the stem is described as an ear. And then the random, which is what I'm doing right now, is a stamped background. So you can see I'm using my Misty. I have a sticky mat in my Misty, and that sticky mat is from Brutus Monroe and Tailored Expressions. And what I did to get my panel centered is I placed the panel onto the stamp and then closed the Misty on top of it backwards. And then my panel was stuck to the sticky mat in the right spot. I stamped with Versamark ink. I've just covered that stamped image in white embossing powder from Hero Arts, and now I am setting that heat embossing. So the stamp that I'm using for the background is called the Espalier Fruit Tree Bold Print stamp from Hero Arts, and I just thought it made a lovely background. And now I'm going in with some Distress Oxide inks. So I'm starting with Cracked Pistachio, then I've got Tumbled Glass, then Shaded Lilac, or Faded Lilac, I'm not quite sure, Worn Lipstick, Dried Marigold, and Squeezed Lemonade to make a little pastel rainbow there. Just whizzed through that really quickly. I decided to cut my panel down so that I would have stripes of white card base on either side of the panel. I always like to have at least a little bit of white space on my card. And yeah, I discovered that my card wasn't folded straight. It was a little bit cattywampus at the bottom, so I've just got out my Teflon bone folder to just rescore it again. And it was just ever so slightly too long for my card. My card, for some reason, is a little bit short. So I'm just cutting off just a tiny little whisker on the top, so that, actually on the bottom, so that it will fit nice and square on that card base. So I'm just adding some tape runner adhesive and placing that right in the centre. Alright, and that is my background done. And I can move on to the focal point of my card. So I'm just going to set this aside and move on. And I've grabbed out my Monthly Hero kit from February this year. So the most recent kit, there's actually another kit coming out on Monday, so keep an eye out for that one. But with this kit, it has these lovely flowers in it, but it also has this tiny little stamp that, well, you could actually make it into a stem of lavender, but I made it into a little stem of wheat. And this kind of stem of wheat, as I said before, is known as an ear. So that covers the parameter of element for this card. Now what I did is I stamped this in sand ink from Hero Arts, and I actually ended up stamping 3 of them, not just the 2. I'm just cutting them down. The dies in this set come all attached to each other. So I actually left them attached, and I just cut down my piece of cardstock and stuck it with some mint tape, before running it through my die cutting machine. So yeah, my dies stayed stuck together, at least up until this part. So now I'm stamping this little jar. It looks like a little mason jar. And I'm stamping this in sort of a pale sort of greeny blue colour. And I double stamped it just to get it nice and intense so I could see the outline really well. And I actually coloured that in a little bit with some Copic markers, cut it out with a die, and then I made some slits in the top of it so that I could actually fit those wheat stems into the jar. So it would look like the rim of the jar was going around the wheat, but the stems were going into the jar. So I also cut out a circle of vellum. So I've placed my jar of wheat on top of the circle of vellum, and now I've just gone to my little stash of pre-stamped and die-cut sentiments. So this sentiment that I've chosen is from Spellbinders. It's from the You Are Everything sentiment set, which is actually a BetterPress set, and it comes with the BetterPress plate, and also the dies go with it as well. And the dies are all together in one sheet, so they cut out all the sentiments all at once. So I have quite a few little Ziploc bags of sentiments that are already stamped and die cut and ready to go in a drawer, so they come in useful quite often. So all I've done is I've used my liquid glue to adhere the jar and the wheat and also the sentiment to the vellum circle. But then I decided I wanted that whole thing to be popped up on foam adhesive. So I've grabbed out these foam squares. These are from Express It Australia. And I'm cutting some of them down so that they will fit on sort of the narrow bits of the sentiment that's sticking out to the side there. But then once I got to sort of the wider bit of the sentiment, I just used a whole of the foam squares. They're not very big foam squares, quite honestly. And now I'm just taking off all of the backing paper off those foam squares before adhering this whole little unit to my card. So that means that the vellum is actually sticking up from the card, as is the sentiment and the focal image. Okay, so then I decided I needed just a tiny little bit of shine, so I've pulled out these little, not exactly gemstones, they're little glass droplets from Trinity stamps, and they're called Bubble Blowout. So they're fairly plain little glass half beads, and I've just adhered them with some liquid glue, and now I'm done with that card. So here it is up close. I hope you enjoyed seeing my process video, and I hope you join in with Craft Roulette the next time it comes around next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.